Hello and welcome everyone to PW OnlyIAS English. As you know, we are running this Udaan series for Prelims 2025 to help you revise things effectively. So in this session on Indian Polity today, I am going to cover the Union Executive topic in its entirety. Part 5 of the Constitution of India will be dealt with along with the previous year questions starting from 2013 onwards. Let's get started. So first of all, you have a look at the previous year question of 2015. Consider the following statements. Number one, the executive power of the Union of India is vested in the Prime Minister. Okay, then Prime Minister is the ex officio chairperson of the Civil Services Board. Now, UPSC is not confining itself to the political executive only. These questions, like Prime Minister is the head of the Civil Services Board, these are venturing into, UPSC is also venturing into the bureaucracy. Okay, cabinet secretariat, cabinet secretary, etc. So you have to be thorough with those details which were previously not an active area to ask the questions from. This another question here. 2014 prelims, which of the following is or are the functions of the cabinet secretariat? Preparation of the agenda of the cabinet meetings, secretarial assistance to the cabinet meetings, allocation of the financial resources to the ministers. So you can answer this question. I'm deliberately not answering. So those of you who are writing prelims, the small tip, a much repeated tip is, please go through these previous year questions quite thoroughly, revise them again and again, and try to find out why a particular option is not the answer. Do not just go by the right answer, but try to find out why a particular option is not the answer in a particular question. Then this question of 2014 again, the president shall make rules for the more convenient transactions of the business of the government of India and for the allocation among the ministries of the said business. So president shall make rules. This is article 77 of the constitution. Okay, all executive actions of the government of India shall be expressed to be taken in the name of the prime minister. All the executive actions, are they taken in the name of the Prime Minister or the President? Questions are easy, but they require a bit of patience, a bit of clarity, so that you do not end up marking the wrong choice as your answer. Okay, so here it requires a bit of patience of nanoseconds to at least read the statement with clarity, with patience. Otherwise, what happens is, because the first part of the option seems to be quite known to everyone, so everybody out of the rush in the prelims, out of the haste, many people they end up marking the wrong option, that yes, option 2 is also correct. Okay, so be very, very careful. Now coming to the other questions here, consider the following statements. 2013 prelims, the Council of Ministers in the center shall be collectively responsible to the Parliament. Is the Council of Ministers collectively responsible or not? Then the Union Ministers shall hold the office during the pleasure of the President of India. Pleasure doctrine, yes, this is right. Okay, the Prime Minister shall communicate to the President about the proposals for legislation. So this is Article 78. Okay, so these shall hold the office, Article 74, 75. Okay, Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible, again 74. So which of the statements given below are correct? This is the question asking. Okay, now coming to the topic here, I have interspersed the questions in between the topics also. The questions that are related to a particular topic have been added at the relevant slide just after the topic, so that you can get the clarity vis-a-vis a particular topic. Now here, vice president, we've already covered the president, we have covered the vice president to some extent. Now a bit of theoretical details about the vice president topic. Article 63, there shall be a vice president of India, second highest office after the president in the order of precedence. So second highest office, the schedule of offices is given in schedule 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, so there it is, as per the protocol, the second highest office. The office of the Indian vice president is modeled on the lines of American vice president. So sometimes these simple questions are also put in the prelims. We have incorporated that. Article 65 says that the vice president shall not be a member of either house of the parliament. Okay, when he is entering upon the office, basically. Okay, so the member of the houses of the parliament or a house of the legislative assembly any legislative assembly, okay, he shall be deemed to have vacated his seat. If any such person contests the election, it would be assumed that he is already resigned from his seat. Okay, no person shall be eligible for election as the vice president unless he or she is a citizen of India, or he or she has completed the age of 35 years. 35 years is the age criteria, is qualified for the election as the member of the Council of States. Since he is going to be the chairperson of Rajya Sabha, so it is but essential for him to be eligible as per the age criteria, and otherwise also he should be qualified to be the member of legislative, the Council of States, that is Rajya Sabha in this case. Now 65 clause 4, a person shall not be eligible for the election as vice president if he holds any office of the profit under the government of India. So this will cast a shadow on his eligibility in this case. If he holds any office of profit under the government of India or the government of any state or even a local body, okay, he should not be deriving salary, etc. This is what it basically means here. Then 66, talking about the election, indirect election was introduced by the 11th Constitutional Amendment Act. 11th Constitutional Amendment Act talks about vice president's election. So Article 66, the vice president shall be elected by the member of an electoral college consisting of members of both the houses, elected as well as nominated members, okay, in accordance with the system of proportional representation. Proportional representation is the system here. Then by means of single transferable vote, more or less the same as that for as the criteria for the election of the president. Okay, the only difference is there 50 proposers are required, here 20 proposers and 20 electors are required. Okay, so 20 seconders are required. In the president's case it is 50-50, here it is 20-20. So the MLAs do not take part in the election of the vice president. Unlike in the President of India's case, MLAs do not take part. Do the members of Legislative Assembly of Delhi and Puducherry, do they take part in this? No, they do not. Okay, so these are the takeaways you should remember. All the members of the parliament, elected or nominated, take part in the election of the vice president. All the members of the parliament, they take part. Okay, the nomination of the candidates to the office of a vice president must be affirmed by 20 electors and who act as the proposers and 20 seconders. This is what I have told you already. Article 71, all the doubts and disputes, like in the case of the office of president also, all the doubts relating to the election of the vice president shall be inquired into and decided by the Supreme Court. Okay, no such petition for challenging the election of the vice president can be called into question on the grounds that his election cannot be questioned on the grounds that there was a vacancy in the electoral college of the vice president. Okay, so again, like in the case of president, if his election is nullified, if his election is declared as invalid, all the decisions taken by the vice president are going to be valid. Even if his whatever term he has served in the vice president's office has been declared to be illegal or invalid, but decisions taken by him shall be held to be valid only. Okay, so this is the basics about this thing. Oath. He takes the oath that he will bear true faith and allegiance to the constitution. Nishtha, संविधान के प्रति निष्ठा रखूंगा. This is what he has to say. Okay, he will discharge the duties upon which he would be called upon to enter. Be it the duty of the vice president, the office of the president, if in case the office of the president falls vacant, or if the president is unavailable, ill, or any other reason, then he has to take the office of the oath of the office of the president also. Now, please understand here. In the case of president, the grounds for removal are mentioned in the constitution. We are talking about the oath, then talking about the removal. Grounds for removal are mentioned. Okay, grounds for removal are mentioned in the constitution for the president, but not for the vice president. Then vice president shall hold the office for a term of 5 years. This is clear from the date upon which he enters upon the office. He can resign. He will submit the resignation to the president. His resignation will go to the president of India. He can also be removed from the office. He holds the office till his successor assumes the charge of the office. He can be re-elected to office any number of times. There is no cap on the re-election. Please bear this in mind. Okay, so this is there. Now Removal, Article 67 talks about the removal. A vice president may be removed from his office by a resolution of the Council of States only. So a resolution of Rajya Sabha alone will be enough. Okay, so resolution by Rajya Sabha will be there. Council of States passed by a majority of all the members of Rajya Sabha, and then this will be sent to the Lok Sabha to be approved by the Lok Sabha. But again, like in the case of the president, 14 days notice is to be given. Okay, then but no resolution for the purpose of this clause shall be moved unless at least 14 days notice is given, and here also absolute majority is required. The motion should be introduced in Rajya Sabha. This is the takeaway from here. There was a slip of the tongue, but you should understand that both the houses resolution is required. Then this process is not called as impeachment, unlike the one for the office of the President of India. All right, inquiry etc. is there. Grounds for removal have not been mentioned. As I said before, the grounds for the removal of the president are mentioned. Briefly, it is written that violation of the constitution. Okay, so that is the then incapacitation etc. Those are secondary grounds, but for the president, violation of the constitution is the brief ground that is mentioned. In case of vice president, no such ground is mentioned for the vice president. Clear? So this is there. Now Article 68, if any vacancy arises, the election should be held before the expiry of the term of the sitting vice president. Okay, in case of death, removal, resignation, otherwise, it says that election should be held as soon as possible. In case of president, the process of electing the new president starts 6 months before the retirement of the incumbent, the existing president. That kind of a criteria is not here for the vice president. Clear? Okay, so these things are there. Now coming to the other aspects here, powers and functions. Article 64 says that vice president shall be the ex officio chairperson of Rajya Sabha. Alright, Article 65, the vice president shall act as the president during the resignation, death, removal or otherwise of the president of for a maximum period of 6 months. Why? Because constitution says that if in case there is a vacancy in the office of president within 6 months, ordinarily barring these circumstances like emergency etc., within 6 months the election to the office of the president has to be concluded. Okay, when the vice presidents act as the president, deputy chairperson of the Rajya Sabha acts as the chairperson. When the vice president acts as the president, deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha will be the chairperson of Rajya Sabha. Okay, the vice president also discharges the functions of the president during his absence, illness, not only vacancy but otherwise also during his absence or illness also. Okay, now coming to the office of the prime minister. So we are having the parliamentary form of government. The office of the prime minister, that is the real head of the government, is all the more important. Many questions have been asked, as you will see across the slides, through these slides also. Prime Minister, parliamentary form of government, it is called as Westminster form of government also. Okay, his position is different from the President of India, since he is the President is the nominal executive and Prime Minister is the real executive. Now here, appointed and not elected. So Article 74 clause 1 states that there shall be a council of ministers with the Prime Minister as the head to aid and advise the President. Article 75 states that Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. So Prime Minister is not directly elected. Okay, he is appointed by the President. The leader of the House, leader of the majority party, is appointed. Sometimes a question could be framed, even though the President is elected as the member of Lok Sabha, but can we say that the Prime Minister is directly elected by the people? Answer would be no, depending upon how the question is framed. Okay, Article 75 clause 5 states that even if Prime Minister chooses me as one of his ministers, I am nobody. I am neither a member of parliament, neither a member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. I can still be the minister for 6 months. Within these 6 months, I'll have to get elected as the member of one of the houses. So first thing first, A nobody can become a minister for 6 months. A non-elected member, non-nominated member, nobody, that means any citizen who is otherwise eligible to become the member of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, can be made the minister for at least 6 months of the term. Within these 6 months, he or she will have to he or she will have to contest the elections. Many finance ministers, etc. Arun Jaitley lost the election in Amritsar. Despite that, he was made the Minister of Finance, Finance Minister in Union Government. So ministers, second point, ministers can come from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay. Prime Minister can also be from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The likes of Indira Gandhi, okay, Dr. Manmohan Singh, they have been the prime ministers who were chosen from Rajya Sabha. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh otherwise was great, a great leader, a great economist, but he could not win the direct election. Okay, so he was first nominated nominated to Rajya Sabha, and then he went on to become the prime minister. Okay, so there is no bar in the constitution on the member of Rajya Sabha to become the minister or prime minister. So Article 75 Clause 5 talks about 6 months. Even though clause is 5, but 6 months. Now, parliamentary conventions, they are there. The president has to appoint the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha as the prime minister. In case of no consensus, no clarity on the member, okay, so leader of the majority party in such a situation of a vacuum can be appointed by the president out of his discretion. Okay, in case no party or alliance, NDA or UPA, enjoys the majority, then the president appoints the leader of the largest party or alliance as the prime minister and asks him to seek a vote of no confidence or vote of confidence, sorry. Okay, he has to prove his majority on the floor of the house. Okay, within a month. So this period is also written here. The discretion of the president was used in 1979 when Charan Singh was made the prime minister, when Morarji Desai was not able to prove his majority. 1979, after emergency phase, Morarji Desai won election, but his government, Janata Party government, fell because of lack of withdrawal of support. Then Chaudhary Charan Singh was made the prime minister, exercising the discretion of the President of India. Likewise, when Indira Gandhi had died in 1984, her son Rajiv Gandhi was made the Prime Minister. Even though because of the mourning, because of the sudden demise, the parliamentary proceedings could not be held. Okay, he could not be chosen as the leader of the House by Congress Party. Nonetheless, he was made the Prime Minister, so as not to have any kind of vacuum in this important office. Gyani Zail Singh took the decision to make the prime minister. So in such a scenario, and Sanjeeva Reddy, okay, was he was the president when Chaudhary Charan Singh was made the prime minister. So likewise, Gyani Zail Singh also. Okay, prime ministers like Indira Gandhi, sometimes they can ask these questions from the topic India since independence. Okay, so Indira Gandhi, Deve Gowda, H.D. Deve Gowda sir, then Manmohan Singh sir, they were members of the Rajya Sabha. If Prime Minister is not a member of the either house of the parliament, he has to be elected to either of the houses, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, within 6 months. Okay, so this is there. In case of S.P. Anand versus H.D. Deve Gowda, so S.P. Anand had filed a petition in the court, and he said that if a person who is not a member of the house is chosen as the prime minister, national interest would be at stake. The Supreme Court said that there is no bar on the non-member from being appointed as the minister or the prime minister. So we cannot stop anybody from being appointed, because Article 75 Clause 5 has been interpreted in such a manner. Okay, even though Article 75 Clause 5 says that a person who is not a minister can continue to, he has to contest the election and become the minister within, become the member within 6 months. But it has been so interpreted and applied that even the non-members have been appointed as the ministers. Right? So this is an irony though. Now, appointment. If the prime minister dies in office, the president appoints the new leader of the ruling party as the prime minister. If the ruling party does not choose a successor, the president exercises the discretion to appoint a temporary or acting prime minister till the time the ruling political party elects a leader or appoints the PM directly. Okay, the senior most leader like Gulzari Lal Nanda was appointed as the acting prime minister after the sudden demise of the first prime minister Jawaharlal Nehru, second prime minister also Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay, so second term of the prime minister, and Lal Bahadur Shastri until the former election of the leader of the ruling party. Okay, so this happened in Gyani Zail Singh's case also. Eligibility. To be eligible for the post of the Prime Minister, should be a citizen of India, be a member of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. He or she should have completed 25 years of age if he is a member of Lok Sabha, or 30 years of age goes without saying, because for being elected the member of Rajya Sabha, as the member of Rajya Sabha, a person's age should be minimum 30 years. Okay, so the anybody who wants to become the prime minister should not be holding any office of profit under the government of India, or government of any state, or government of any authority. Okay, so office of profit, sometimes people have held this. Some of the offices of profit in the government of India and the governments of states have been exempted from this office of profit clause. Now, oath of the Prime Minister is same as that of any other Union Minister. So this can be the matter of interest in prelims. The oath of the Prime Minister is same as that of any other Union Minister. The Prime Minister swears to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution. Same as the case with the Vice President's oath. Then, second aspect is not the same. Here, to uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India. Okay, to faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of his office. Fourth, to do right to all the manner of people in accordance with the constitution and the law. He should be the president of every section of society, not just Hindus, not just Muslims, not just Sikhs, every section of society, without fear or favor. Okay, he should be a neutral leader. To bear true faith, sovereignty and integrity of India, to faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties. Now, term and retirement. Unlike the president, the prime minister does not have a fixed tenure. Okay, so full term of prime minister is 5 years, but he will survive until the Lok Sabha is dissolved. If because of lack of majority Lok Sabha has to be dissolved, then the prime minister also would be considered to have resigned. Okay, and if the prime minister resigns, it is considered that the entire council of ministers has resigned. Okay, it's like he's like the captain of the ship. If the captain resigns, the entire crew members it would be considered that they all have resigned. Okay, so for his continuance in the office, he has to at all times have the confidence of at least 273 members in Lok Sabha. Okay, so today, we are talking about the delimitation exercise and other things. You guys are also being requested to be thorough with those details, delimitation act, various other acts that are there, and the articles that deal with the delimitation. We will be covering that in the next lecture though. So here it is. Now, however, the term can end sooner if he loses the vote of confidence in the lower house. So it can be said that he remains in power as long as he enjoys the confidence of Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister can also resign by writing to the President. See, what happens is, if the Prime Minister advises the President, if the outgoing ministry, Prime Minister plus the Council of Ministers, advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha, should the President go by the advice of the outgoing Council of Ministers, outgoing cabinet? No, President should apply his own mind, his own judgment, that is it the case that only the Prime Minister and his council is not able to prove majority. He should ideally give a chance to someone else. He should try to explore the possibility of forming the government without dissolving the Lok Sabha and asking the election commission to hold the fresh elections, because that is a costly and time taking affair, and that would not be a justice with the will of the people. So he should not go by the decision by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers during such circumstances when the President thinks that it is only the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister which is not able to prove itself. Right? There is also no official retirement age. So Prime Minister Modi came at the age of 63. Today he is 74 years plus. No retirement age for the Prime Minister or any of the ministers whatsoever. Okay, link between the President and the Council of Ministers. This can be a direct question. Which of the articles establish the link between the Prime Minister and the President? Okay, so link between the Prime Minister is the link between the President and the Council of Ministers, and President is the link between the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. Because there could be scenarios, there have been scenarios where the Prime Minister has unilaterally taken the decision without informing his own Council of Ministers. So in such scenarios, President appoints the Council of Ministers on the recommendation of the President. The Minister shall hold the office during the pleasure of the President. Minister shall hold the office during the pleasure of the President. The President can dismiss or ask a minister to resign only on the recommendation of the PM. President can dismiss or ask a minister to resign. Okay, but the problem is here, can the President not remove a minister who's been caught red-handed on camera of Tehelka taking bribe? George Fernandez, A. Raja, Congress, okay, BJP, both the examples I'm giving you. So President is required as per his oath to uphold the constitution. Okay, so fulfilling his duty of office as per Article 52, should he not uphold, preserve, protect and promote constitutional governance? This is what his oath requires him to. This is what he is required to do. But here this Article 75 clause 2 comes into conflict with Article 52. Even though this is the discussion for mains, but sometimes this kind of an explanation, understanding is required in some of the prelims questions also. Okay, so bear this in mind. So Article 52 requires him to preserve, to protect, preserve and promote the constitution. Whereas Article 75 says that President cannot dismiss even a corrupt minister without the aid and advice of Council of Ministers, right? Same applies to governor also, sir. Article 78, it shall be the duty of Prime Minister to communicate to the President all the decisions of the Cabinet or all the decisions of the Council of Ministers relating to the administration of the affairs of the Union. So Prime Minister should keep the President informed. Okay, then to furnish such information on which a decision has already been taken. Okay, but some of the proposals for legislation etc. are not known to the ministers. Okay, President should also be informed about the decisions or proposals for legislation which haven't yet been introduced in Lok Sabha, but Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers is considering those proposals. Even if they are mere proposals, they should inform to the President about these type of proposals also. Okay, as the President may call for. Then, if the President so requires, the PM should submit for the consideration of the Council of Ministers any matter on which a decision has been taken by a minister or a Prime Minister, but which has not been considered by the Council of Ministers. So, this Article 78 Clause C ensures collective responsibility. Collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers. Okay, clear? Towards whom? Towards one another and towards the Parliament through Article 75. Towards the people's representative, people's house, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha both. Okay, now a minister has the right to sit both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Even if, let's assume, I am a minister, I got elected to Lok Sabha. As a minister, I can sit in Rajya Sabha also. Okay, so to answer the queries of the members of Rajya Sabha. Now, Powers and functions, allocation and reshufflement of portfolios. Since he is the captain of the team, he decides his team. Okay, he decides which of the minister would be given the rank of cabinet. He decides which of the minister will be given the rank of minister of state, independent charge, IC. Okay, and minister of state. These are junior ministers. Minister of state, independent charge. Independent charge means that this minister will be holding independent ministry. Cabinet ministers are the senior most ministers. Now, Prime Minister retains certain portfolios that are not allocated. For example, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, he retained coal ministry with himself. And for a brief while, he retained finance ministry also. For 2004, first 6 months of the government, 3 months of the government. Okay, Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. These are the, generally Prime Minister is in charge. Okay, we see Honorable Jitendra Singh sir as the Minister of State for this department of DOPT, which chooses the IAS office, which is the Cadre Controlling Authority. Department of Personnel and Training within this ministry is the Cadre Controlling Authority of IAS. Okay, so Jitendra Singh sir is Minister of State for this thing. The minister actually is the Prime Minister because public grievances, okay, personnel, then Department of Atomic Energy, nuclear energy, etc. That is why sometimes it is colloquially said that the nuclear button remains with the Prime Minister of India. When to attack a country, etc. Department of Space, ISRO, etc. remains with the Prime Minister. All the important policy issues and other portfolios that are not allocated to any minister remain with the Prime Minister. So business is allocated to the ministries under which article? Article 77. Alright. This is the article under which new ministries, new departments, new authorities can be created without legislation, without enacting a law. Does it require a law to be passed for a ministry to be created? No, sir, it does not. Okay. Now, leader of the cabinet. So, Prime Minister summons and presides over all the meetings of the cabinet. Cabinet is the inner circle of the Council of Ministers. So, if this is Council of Ministers, large body, 54 members, but cabinet will comprise of 10 to 12 members only. Okay, now he announces the important policy decisions of the government. The Prime Minister can also intervene in debates of general importance in the Parliament to clarify the government's stand or policy. He is the chief spokesperson of the government. So you know about our Prime Minister. He does all the things quite efficaciously, quite impressively. So Prime Minister represents India in various delegations, talk about G20, talk about UN, etc. In the international affairs, he is the spokesperson of the country. The Prime Minister plays a major role. These are all theoretical things. Okay. Now, leader of the Council of Ministers. He is the first among equals. The ministers report directly to the Prime Minister. In case of difference of opinion between the Prime Minister and any other minister, the opinion of the Prime Minister shall prevail. He calls the final shots. Okay, so this is there. Now, the Prime Minister is the chief coordinator of the government. He is the chief coordinator of the government's business also. All right. So this is there through the cabinet, through the Prime Minister's office. All those things are given. Now, leader of the Parliament. The Prime Minister is the leader of the house to which he belongs. He can also take part in the debates in the house of which he is not a member. So he can sit in both Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay. So Prime Minister summons and prorogues the sessions of the Parliament through even though the President does it, but it is on the aid and advice of Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs or aid and advice of the Council of Ministers or the Cabinet. President does this job of summoning and proroguing under Article 85 of the Constitution. Okay. He also advises, Prime Minister advises the President to dissolve the Lok Sabha. As I explained earlier, that it is ultimately going to be the discretion of the President whether he dissolves it or not. If he thinks that the Prime Minister actually carries weight, actually carries the confidence of 273 members, then he can call the midterm elections. Then he can dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of the Council of Ministers, right? So this is there. He advises the president with respect to appointment of officials like Attorney General, CAG, chairperson and members of UPSC. Finance Commission is to be constituted every 5 years. So even though these decisions are taken in the name of the president, but ultimately all these members are appointed on the advice of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Okay, he is the political head of the services. So the three services: Navy, Army, Air Force. As the leaders of the nation, he meets as the leader of the nation, he meets various sections of people in all parts of the country, at least during the elections. Right. On a lighter note, now PMO. There is a conflict between PMO and cabinet. I mean, theoretical, at least for the debate purpose. Who is more powerful? Which is more powerful? What is more powerful, PMO or the cabinet? The word cabinet secretary is mentioned in the constitution or not? Right, the word PMO is mentioned in the constitution or not? These type of questions have been asked, okay, or can be asked. So politically headed by the PM, now we have two principal secretaries, okay, and administratively headed by the principal secretary. Recently Shakti Kanta Das has been appointed as the principal secretary to the second principal secretary to the Prime Minister, because Prime Minister works for 14 to 15 hours a day. One principal secretary might get tired, so that is why two are needed. So our Prime Minister is a superman. Now it consists of the natural hierarchy of the officers, starting from the principal secretary to lower level officers. So many prime ministers, they wanted their PMO because having the PMO gives them the liberty to choose the officer of their choice, whereas in cabinet secretariat, most importantly, the senior most IAS officer is to be, more often than not, it is bound by the constitutional norms. The senior most IAS officer only can be appointed as the cabinet secretary. Therefore, the Prime Minister may not share a good rapport, a good telepathic kind of a relationship as is required between the PM and the secretary. That is why many prime ministers since last 30-40 years, they have given more importance to the PMO, Prime Minister's office, rather than the cabinet secretariat. Okay, cabinet secretariat is the place where all the cabinet ministers they sit, and any interministerial coordination between the ministers is sought or resolved by cabinet secretary. With the advent of PMO, cabinet secretary has become the second most important office in the country. The administrative office, the bureaucratic office we are talking about. Okay, so cabinet secretariat is the repository of all the information. Functions of PMO, Prime Minister's office, helps the PM in coordinating and supervising all the ministries, looks after the relations between the PM, other constitutional heads, helps the PM in his responsibilities as chairperson of various organizations. So here, if you look at this, I mean, these are theoretical functions only, but as we'll proceed along, you will see that a lot of cabinet committees are there. So those cabinet committees are to be their agenda, their meeting, their schedule, everything has to be sorted by the Prime Minister's office. Then foreign meetings, foreign delegates coming to India, everything is in a very, very efficient manner sought by the timetable of the Prime Minister, how he is going to utilize his time, what are the items on the agenda, everything is done by the PMO. Okay, so this is there. Now, Central Council of Ministers. Here, the status, appointment and functions of the Central Council of Ministers are detailed in Article 74 as we have read before. The Central Council of Ministers continues to be it constitutes the core group of ministers. Okay, not the core, the group of all the ministers. Core is the cabinet. Core group will be the cabinet only, cabinet ministers. The inner coterie, the kitchen cabinet or something as we call it. Okay, kitchen cabinet is even smaller. The term kitchen cabinet was coined by commentators during the tenure of Indira Gandhi, since she was the lady prime minister. So they used to say that while making tea in the kitchen, Indira Gandhi would be consulting her close confidentes, her close ministers while in the kitchen, but she never entered the kitchen though. Okay, so the term was coined out of this thing, euphemistically only you can say. Okay, so this was there. Now there shall be a council of ministers. Now for your this thing, okay, there is no distinction between given between there is no term like minister of state independent charge given in the constitution. Okay, the word cabinet for itself, the word cabinet itself, cabinet minister or cabinet itself was added for the first time by 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1985. Even though this act talks about anti-defection law, but this was the first time through this act that the word cabinet was added. 42nd Amendment Act introduced the word shall. So here word shall in the sense that the president shall be bound by the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers when the same advice is tendered the second time, if not in first time. Reconsideration, after reconsideration the advice is going to be bound. Okay, the president is going to be bound by the advice. So however, the Council of Ministers should reconsider the advice if required by the president to do so, after which the president is bound. This safeguard was given to the president by the 44th Amendment Act. The word shall was added by Indira Gandhi. So she was a iron lady, so she would insert these type of words. But Morarji Desai understood the misuse, that if an advice is tendered to the president, is he required to accept the advice the very first time? Then he is none other than a rubber stamp, not more than a rubber stamp. That is why the highest officer, the highest office of the land, that of the president, even if it is a nominal office, if the president sends the advice to be reconsidered, any matter of bill etc., to be reconsidered by the Council of Ministers, by the cabinet, that carries a moral weight. That the president, the guardian of the constitution, the guardian figure, okay, even though figurehead, if he is sent back the advice, that means there must be something improper to it, improper with the advice so tendered by the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. The safeguard of reconsideration option given to the president was added by Morarji Desai led government, 44th Amendment Act 1978. Okay, now the courts cannot inquire into the advice given by the Council of Ministers. It is not that courts cannot see what the advice was given. Courts cannot ask why this advice was given. This clarity is important. You never know the way how the question would be framed. Okay, so this is important. Now Article 75 other provisions, 91st Amendment Act added a provision that not more than 15% of the members of Lok Sabha, of the strength of the House of People, can become the ministers. Okay, why? Because during that time everybody was asking to become the minister. So much so that there was a ministry for disinvestment, ministry for everything. Okay, so everybody, because of the coalition, advent of the coalition government, every political party contributing as low as 7 members to the government to achieve the number of 273. Okay, every member of the alliance wanted some ministerial portfolio to be given to that party. That is why the number of ministers was exceeding to, let's say, 91, 100. That is why a cap was put that not more than 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha can become the ministers. The total number of ministers today that cannot exceed is 82, 81 only. Okay, even though Prime Minister believes in minimum government, maximum governance, that is a separate thing. Okay, now whenever the coalition governments are seen, number of ministers increases, because every member of the coalition needs to be appeased, needs to be satisfied. Trinamool Congress would want a railway ministry and one more ministry. DMK, DMK would want 2 ministries from the central government. Okay, so this is how A. Raja and Dayanidhi Maran from Tamil Nadu became 2 ministers. Likewise for other political parties. The ministers shall hold the office during the pleasure of the president. Even though the pleasure of the president is given, but as we saw, Article 75, ministers serve in the office till the pleasure of the Prime Minister. Theoretically, it is the president. Oath of the office is administered to the ministers by the president only. Okay, council of ministers shall be collectively responsible to Lok Sabha, the house of people, the popularly elected house. Before entering the office, the ministers shall be administered the oath of office and the secretary and the secrecy by the president, that they should maintain secrecy. For example, if it is finance minister, she should not divulge out the details of the budget unless it is made, unless it is publicized. Okay, a minister who is not a member of the either house of the parliament for 6 consecutive months ceases to be a minister, even though this was given in the article 75 clause 5, that anybody who is not a minister for 6 months ceases to become the minister. But it has been interpreted in the reverse manner, that anybody who is not a minister can also be the anybody who is not a member can also be the minister for at least 6 months. This is an irony, Sarji, right? This is the problem. It has been twisted upside down. The parliament shall determine the salaries and allowances of the ministers. The salaries of MPs, ministers are determined by the parliament for the union level. Okay. So other articles, 77 clause 3, all the rules for the business of the government of India, the ministries, the allocation of business amongst ministries is decided under article 77. Article 78, communication between the president and the council of ministers through the prime minister. Article 88, every minister shall have a right to speak and take part in the proceedings of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or joint sitting. Now I ask you a question, joint sitting is held under which article of the constitution? Please do answer. Okay, so types of ministries in the council, types of ministers in the council of ministers, we've talked about it briefly. Prime minister, cabinet ministers, ministers of state, minister of state independent charge. These types of the ministries are not given in the constitution. Okay, these are given in the rules as drafted and updated under article 77, this article we were talking about. Okay, what will be the type of ministers, who will be senior in rank? So cabinet ministers are the senior most ranks. See how a question, this is very simple though, look at it, how the question has been asked around this. Consider the following statements, 2022 prelims, not 2012 or 2002, recent one only. The Constitution of India classifies the ministers into 4 ranks: cabinet ministers, minister of state with independent charge, minister of state, and deputy minister. Right. Then the total number of ministries in the union government, including the prime minister, shall not exceed 15% of the total number of members in the Lok Sabha. So, last tip before we close this session, read the statement in its entirety till the last dot. Maybe at the end it is written as House of the Council of States or House of something else, Rajya Sabha. Okay, so then you are losing out on the marks unnecessarily by committing these silly mistakes. Okay, so this is there. Now, cabinet system, the role of cabinet is an inner ring of the council of ministers, as I said, except for article 352, which cites the written consent of the cabinet necessary for declaration of national emergency. It is otherwise not mentioned in the constitution as a policy making body. All right, so cabinet is mentioned in 52nd Amendment Act. Okay, anti-defection law. So it wasn't there for the policy making body purpose. For the national emergency, the advice tendered by the cabinet, it was also amended, added later on. Prime Minister, on the aid and advice of the cabinet, can aid the president, can advise the president to invoke emergency. All right, it is the chief crisis man. He is the chief crisis managing body of the country. The cabinet decisions are important. So there are various types of cabinet committees also. Cabinet committee on appointments, etc. Appointments committee of cabinet. Cabinet committee on economic affairs. These type of committees are there. All the major appointments are decided by the cabinet. Advice to the president by the PM is based on the decisions of the cabinet chaired by the PM. Okay, kitchen cabinet, a cabinet within a cabinet. So this was the case with Indira Gandhi. Council of Ministers, then cabinet, then within that kitchen cabinet. Okay, it consists of the most influential persons the most important confidentes of the PM. It becomes the real center of power in a parliamentary democracy. Then coming about cabinet secretariat, it is under the direct charge of the Prime Minister. Cabinet headed by PM is assisted by the cabinet secretariat. There are around 100 to 200 IAS officers in the cabinet secretariat. Cabinet secretary being the topmost bureaucrat of the country. Okay, it enjoys the status of department of the government of India under the allocation of business rules 1961, like the PMO. So insofar as the rules are concerned, PMO and cabinet secretariat are equally placed. But the important thing is, power belongs to where the PM sits. PM sits in PMO. Okay, most of the PMs have made PMO their den, their place of work. Politically headed by the PM and administratively headed by the cabinet secretary. So it consists of natural hierarchy of secretaries starting from cabinet secretary to under secretary. The administrative head of the secretariat is the head is the cabinet secretariat, who is also the ex officio chairperson of Civil Services Board. Please remember the question with which we started this lecture. So administrative head of the secretariat, that is cabinet secretary, is the ex officio chairperson of the Civil Services Board, not the Prime Minister. Functions: cabinet secretariat is responsible for administration of government of India, transaction of business rules, administration of government of India, allocation of business rules, transaction, how the business between two ministries would be transacted, paperwork, file notings, etc., how the business will be allocated between Ministry of Defense, for example, and Ministry of Home Affairs. Facilitating smooth transactions of business in ministries, departments of the government by ensuring adherence to these rules. The Secretariat assistance in the decision making in government by the Secretariat assists the decision making in the government by ensuring interministerial coordination. For example, if the matter of drones, regulation of drones is there, which ministry is going to regulate it? Ministry of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Defense, or Ministry of Home Affairs? Sometimes these petty disputes keep on happening, okay, quite often. So it is during these times that cabinet secretary will constitute a high power committee comprising of the related secretaries. Ministry of Civil Aviation secretary, they will sit together and resolve these interministerial issues. Okay, evolving consensus through instrumentality of standing committees or ad hoc committees of the secretaries. Through this mechanism, new policy initiatives are also promoted. So actually the policies as they are made, as we know, policies are made by the bureaucracy only. It is actually the cabinet secretary who vets the policies, who gives the stamps of approval, and then they go to PMO, and then they are signed by the PM as advised by the principal secretary. Right? This is the beauty of our system, that it is the IAS cadre which is effectively running the country. Okay, even though the policy prerogatives are that of the elected representative, that is the Prime Minister. So cabinet secretariat ensures that the president, the vice president, and ministers are kept informed of major activities. Management of major crisis situations in the country and coordinating activities of various ministries in such a situation is also one of the functions of cabinet secretariat. Yeah. PMO versus cabinet secretariat, this is the kind of debate for mains. This is not as important for prelims. Okay, way forward, these things are there. Now let's have a look at the mains questions. I want to tell you through these mains questions that sometimes these very questions have been converted into preliminary, CSAT questions since 2013 change of pattern. 2011 the prelims pattern had changed, 2013 mains pattern also got changed. So these questions have been converted, these questions have been molded in a manner. So just for your conceptual clarity of thought vis-a-vis the topic, underlying concept, underlying facts, just go through these mains oriented questions also. The PPT, the PDF will be shared on the Telegram channel, the link of which is given in the description box. Telegram channel name is Jatin Verma Sir, PW Only IAS. So this was all in this lecture. We'll be coming up with the next lecture on Tuesday under this Udaan series for Indian Polity. Until then, bye bye, take care, thank you, enjoy your weekend guys. Thank you.